The Price of Survival. The monsoon rains lashed against the windows of the tiny dance studio in Bandra, almost drowning out the sound of Prisha Sharma's ghungroo bells as she moved across the worn wooden floor. Her reflection in the mirror showed a woman of 25 with determination etched across her face, even as exhaustion threatened to overtake her. Each step, each mudra of her hands told a story her heart could barely sustain, one of perseverance despite overwhelming odds. Again, she instructed the four young girls watching her with wide eyes. Remember, Kathak is not just about the steps, it's about the emotions behind them. The smallest girl, Riti, nodded earnestly. Like when you dance about Lord Krishna, Prisha Didi, your eyes tell the whole story. Prisha smiled, the first genuine one that day. These children, most from families who could barely afford the reduced fees she charged, were her only joy lately. As the lesson ended and the last child was collected by her grandmother, Prisha sank to the floor, finally allowing herself to acknowledge the pain in her chest that had nothing to do with physical exertion. Her phone buzzed with a message from the hospital. Her father needed another treatment tomorrow, one she couldn't possibly afford. Dheeraj Sharma had been Mumbai's most respected tabla player once, accompanying legendary dancers across the country. Now cancer had silenced his gifted hands, and the medical bills were crushing what little savings their family had. The dance academy, his dream for his daughter, was failing too, with enrollment dropping as more modern dance styles became popular. Prisha wiped her tears and checked her bank balance on her phone. The number stared back at her, impossibly inadequate. 3 months behind on rent for both their apartment and the studio. The electricity bill marked final notice, and now another treatment. The buzzer rang, startling her. Mrs. Kapoor, her landlady, stood at the door, her usually kind face now stern. Prisha, beta, I can't extend your deadline anymore. My own son is pressuring me to rent to a tech company offering triple. Please, Auntie, just 2 more weeks. I have applied for Arts Council funding, and I'm looking for a second job. Mrs. Kapoor sighed. 1 week. That's all I can give you. After the landlady left, Prisha noticed a glossy envelope that had been slipped under her door earlier. Inside was an invitation to the annual charity gala at the Indra, Mumbai's most exclusive hotel. As a once notable performer, she occasionally received such invitations, though she never attended. Who had time for sipping champagne with the elite when survival consumed every waking hour? But at the bottom, a handwritten note caught her eye. Hostesses needed for the evening. A 25,000 compensation. Formal attire required. 25,000 rupees. Not enough for the full treatment, but enough to buy time. 3 nights later, Prisha stood in the grand ballroom of the Indra, wearing her mother's old silk sari, emerald, green with gold embroidery, the only fine thing she still possessed. Her job was simple. Smile, direct guests to their tables, make small talk with donors. Just another pretty fixture in a room designed to extract money from the wealthy for various charities. You look uncomfortable, a deep voice observed from behind her. Prisha turned to find herself facing a tall man in an impeccably tailored black suit. Vikram Singhania. She recognized him immediately from business magazines and billboards. At 33, he had doubled the Singhania hotel empire's worth, and was known for his ruthless business tactics and guarded private life. I'm perfectly comfortable, sir, she replied, her tone professional despite the flutter in her stomach. This man owned the very building they stood in, along with a dozen others across Asia. You're a terrible liar, he said, his dark eyes assessing her with unsettling intensity. You're Prisha Sharma, aren't you? Dheeraj Sharma's daughter. Surprise registered on her face. You know my father? I know of him. A masterful tabla player. I have recordings of his performances. He nodded toward her hands. And you're a dancer. Classical Kathak, I'm guessing from your posture and hasta mudras. The fact that he recognized the subtle hand positions of a dancer both impressed and unnerved her. "Yes, I run a small academy in Bandra, yet you're here serving drinks instead of performing on our stage." It wasn't a question, but a challenge. "The academy barely pays the bills," she admitted, then immediately regretted the vulnerability. "Excuse me, I should attend to the other guests." As she moved away, she felt his eyes following her. Throughout the evening, she noticed him watching her, even as he charmed donors and closed deals with handshakes that probably translated to millions. When most guests had departed and the hostesses were gathering their belongings, Prisha slipped out onto the hotel's garden terrace, needing a moment of fresh air before facing the long journey home. The city lights spread before her like fallen stars, beautiful and unreachable. Tears she'd held back all evening finally escaped, sliding down her cheeks silently. Most people who cry at my events do so because they've drunk too much champagne. She whirled around to find Vikram leaning against a pillar, his jacket now discarded and sleeves rolled up. Despite her embarrassment, she noticed the expensive watch on his wrist probably cost more than her father's entire year of treatments. "I should go," she murmured, wiping her face hastily. "Wait." His command was soft but unmistakable. "Something's wrong. Tell me." Perhaps it was exhaustion, or the kindness unexpectedly laced through his voice, but the dam broke. "My father is dying. The treatments cost more than I can earn in 6 months. I'm about to lose our apartment and my studio. And tomorrow, I have to tell him I can't afford the medicine that might give him another year of life." She expected pity, or worse, dismissal. Instead, his expression remained thoughtful, calculating even. "I knew your father's work before I knew your name," he said finally. His rhythm gave structure to some of the most beautiful dance performances I've ever seen. He stepped closer, and in the moonlight she noticed his eyes weren't simply dark. They held flecks of amber, like fire trapped in obsidian. "I have a proposition for you, Prisha Sharma." His voice was businesslike now, all trace of compassion carefully controlled. "I'll cover your father's medical expenses, all of them, and enough to keep your studio running for 6 months. Her heart stuttered. "Why would you do that?" "In exchange for 1 night of your time." The implication hung in the air between them. Prisha stepped back, shock and indignation flooding her system. "I'm not for sale, Mr. Singhania." "That's not what I'm asking." For the first time, irritation crossed his face. "I'm not looking for a physical arrangement. Just your company. 1 evening, 1 conversation. Nothing more." "Why?" The question escaped before she could stop it. He looked away toward the sprawling city. "Let's just say I recognize something in you that's rare in my world. Authenticity, passion for something beyond money or status. And that's worth lakhs of rupees to you?" Disbelief colored her voice. "Everyone has a price, Ms. Sharma." His eyes met hers again. "Mine is honest conversation with someone who doesn't want something from me. Yours is your father's life." The words hit with the precision of a surgeon's knife. He was right. For her father, she would sacrifice anything, even her pride. "When?" she asked quietly. "Tomorrow night. I'll send a car at 8. He handed her a business card with a mobile number scrawled on the back. "Text me your address." As he turned to leave, she called after him. "Mr. Singhania? How do I know you'll keep your word?" He paused, looking back with an expression she couldn't decipher. "Because unlike most people in this city, I understand the value of what I'm purchasing." After he vanished back inside, Prisha remained on the terrace, the card clutched in her trembling hand. The night air suddenly felt colder against her skin, as if the universe itself was warning her about the bargain she'd just struck. 1 night for her father's life. 1 conversation with a man who could buy and sell people's futures over breakfast. A man who saw something in her that he deemed valuable enough to pay for. As she finally left the hotel, the first drops of a new rainstorm began to fall, mirroring the conflict cascading through her mind. She had just sold her time to a man who seemed to want more than just her company. He wanted something only she possessed, her authenticity, her soul. One night's bargain. The black luxury sedan pulled up outside Prisha's modest apartment building precisely at 8 o'clock the next evening. She stood in the shadows of the entranceway, watching raindrops trace patterns on the tinted windows. For a moment, she considered running, back upstairs to her ailing father who believed she was attending a dance performance, away from the moral compromise that twisted her stomach into knots. But the hospital bill notification on her phone had arrived just an hour ago. Treatment tomorrow or nothing, there was no choice. The driver stepped out with an umbrella and escorted her to the car. Inside, she found not Vikram, but a small velvet box on the seat with a handwritten note. For tonight. To be returned tomorrow. Inside was a pair of diamond earrings that caught the streetlight in dazzling prisms. Prisha left the box untouched beside her. She hadn't agreed to be adorned like a doll. The car wound through Mumbai's congested streets, eventually leaving the city behind. They traveled up winding coastal roads until reaching a secluded, modern villa perched on a cliff, overlooking the Arabian Sea, floor to ceiling. Windows revealed the rhythmic crashing of waves against rocks below, illuminated by carefully placed landscape lighting. A housekeeper greeted her at the door. "Mr. Singhania is on the terrace. This way, please." As Prisha followed, she took in the understated luxury of the home. Unlike the opulent displays of wealth she'd expected, the space was minimalist, with a carefully curated collection of contemporary Indian art and antique musical instruments displayed as focal points. Vikram stood with his back to her, gazing out at the dark horizon where the sea and sky merged into an infinite void. He wore casual clothes, dark jeans and a simple white linen shirt, a stark contrast to his formal attire the previous night. He turned as she approached, his expression unreadable. "You didn't wear the earrings," he observed. "I didn't come here to pretend to be someone I'm not," Prisha replied, her voice steadier than she felt. She'd chosen her simplest salwar kameez, midnight blue cotton with minimal embroidery. "If authentic conversation is what you're purchasing, this is who I am." Something like respect flickered across his face. "Fair enough." He gestured toward a table set for two. "Are you hungry?" The meal was served by a private chef who disappeared after presenting each course. Simple South Indian dishes prepared with exceptional skill, exactly the kind of food Prisha loved but rarely could afford. The coincidence felt calculated. "How did you know?" she asked, setting down her spoon. "Know what?" "That I prefer South Indian cuisine. That my mother was from Chennai." Vikram took a sip of water. "I make it my business to understand people I'm interested in." "You had me investigated." It wasn't a question. A brief background check. "Standard for anyone I do business with." Prisha pushed her plate away. "Is that what this is?" "Business? Everything in life is a transaction, Ms. Sharma. The sooner you accept that, the easier things become." "That's a cold way to view the world. It's realistic." He leaned forward. "Your father taught you dance from age 3. You received a scholarship to study at Nalanda Dance Academy, but declined it to care for him when he first fell ill. You've performed at national-level competitions but gave up touring 2 years ago. Your academy teaches underprivileged children for free every Sunday." He paused. "Tell me what part of that investigation was incorrect." Prisha felt exposed, vulnerable. "None of it. But knowing facts about me doesn't mean you know me." "Then enlighten me." He leaned back, studying her with those intense eyes. "That's why you're here, isn't it? To reveal who Prisha Sharma truly is." The directness of his challenge stirred something in her. Not just indignation, but a strange desire to prove him wrong about her, about his transactional view of human connection. "What do you want to know?" "Why dance?" he asked. "With your intelligence, you could have chosen a more profitable path." The question was one she'd answered many times, usually with the polite response about cultural heritage and artistic expression. But something about Vikram's scrutiny demanded honesty. "Because it's the only time I feel completely alive," she admitted. "When I dance, everything else falls away. The bills, the worry, even time itself. It's like becoming pure emotion." She looked down at her hands, embarrassed by her candor. That probably sounds foolish to someone like you. Someone like me? His voice held an edge. Someone whose world revolves around balance sheets and asset acquisitions? You presume much about me based on little evidence. Isn't that the same judgment you accuse me of making? The observation stung because it contained truth. Prisha fell silent, reconsidering the man before her. Despite his wealth and power, there was something almost ascetic about his lifestyle here, away from the glamour of his hotels and public image. Why did you really bring me here, Mr. Singhania? She finally asked. And please, not another line about purchasing authentic conversation. Vikram stood and walked to a cabinet, retrieving an old record player. With meticulous care, he selected a vinyl record and placed it on the turntable. The rich, complex rhythms of tabla filled the room. Her father's recording with the legendary Pandit Hariprasad Chaureja from 20 years ago. This was the first classical recording I owned, he said quietly. I was 13, sent to boarding school in Switzerland, homesick, angry. A teacher gave me this record and a cheap player. His fingers traced the album cover reverently. Your father's rhythm became my anchor when everything felt foreign. Prisha felt her throat tighten with unexpected emotion. You could have just donated to his medical fund anonymously. Why this elaborate arrangement? Because money solves only the most superficial problems. He turned to face her, his composure slipping just slightly. I needed to understand something. What? How someone maintains passion in a world that constantly demands compromise. He gestured around them. All this, my empire, my success, was built on compromise. On becoming what others needed me to be. The ruthless businessman. The perfect Singhania heir. For the first time, Prisha glimpsed vulnerability beneath his controlled exterior. Not manipulation, but genuine conflict. And what did you hope to learn from me? She asked softly. How to feel something real again. The admission seemed to cost him, his jaw tightening as soon as the words left his mouth. Even if I have to pay for the experience. The confession hung between them, raw and unexpected. Prisha found herself moving toward the large window, needing distance to process his words. The moon had emerged from behind clouds, casting silver light across the turbulent sea below. You can't buy authenticity, Mr. Singhania. Vikram, he corrected. If we're being authentic, use my name. Vikram, she repeated, the intimacy of it feeling like another boundary crossed. You've surrounded yourself with beautiful things, important people, but has none of it made you happy? Happiness is a luxury I never prioritized. He joined her at the window, careful to maintain distance between them. My grandfather built our first hotel with borrowed money and sheer determination. My father expanded through strategic marriages and political connections. I've taken us international through calculated risks and technological innovation. There was never room for indulgences. And that's what this is? An indulgence? Perhaps. He studied her reflection in the glass. Or perhaps it's desperation. The honesty of his answer struck her more powerfully than any rehearsed charm could have. Prisha turned to face him fully. Dance with me, she said suddenly. Surprise registered on his face. What? You want authenticity? Experience it. No tableau, no recording. Just movement. I don't dance. Everyone can dance. It's the most honest conversation two people can have without words. Before he could object further, she took his hand and led him to the open space beside the dining area. The music still played, her father's rhythmic genius providing the perfect backdrop. She positioned his hands correctly, one at her waist, maintaining proper distance between their bodies. Follow my lead, she instructed. Don't think. Just respond. At first he moved stiffly, his usual control working against him. But gradually, as she guided him through simple steps that evolved into more complex movements, something shifted. His body began to understand what his mind resisted, the language of rhythm, of call and response. When she spun away and then back into the frame of his arms, she caught a glimpse of something rare and precious, Vikram Singhania, smiling without calculation or purpose. A genuine expression of unexpected joy. They danced until the record ended, the final tabla beats fading into the sound of their breathing and the distant waves. When they finally separated, something had fundamentally changed between them, a bridge crossed that neither had anticipated. "Your father's music and your dancing," he said, his voice rougher than before. "A powerful combination." "It's the conversation you paid for," she replied, but without the bitterness that had edged her earlier words. Complete honesty between two people. Later, as they sat on the terrace sharing tea, their conversation flowed more naturally. He spoke of the pressure of carrying his family legacy, the loneliness of leadership. She told him about her students, her dreams for preserving classical dance in a modern world, her father's wisdom that sustained her through hardship. Midnight came and went, then one, then two. Neither seemed willing to end the strange connection that had formed between them. Vulnerable, tentative, but shadows and light. 3 weeks passed like a dream. Prisha's father had been moved to Mumbai's finest private hospital, where specialists spoke optimistically about his prognosis for the first time in years. Her dance studio's rent was paid through the next 6 months. Even the electricity and water bills had mysteriously been settled, and she hadn't heard a word from Vikram Singhania. Sometimes she wondered if that night at his seaside villa had been a fever dream. The vulnerability in his eyes as they danced, the way his voice softened when he spoke of her father's music. But the tangible evidence of his intervention in her life remained, making her both grateful and increasingly unsettled. Their bargain was complete. So why did she find herself looking for his face in crowds or checking her phone for messages? That never came? "You seem distracted today, Betty," her father observed as she arranged fresh flowers beside his hospital bed. Dheeraj Sharma looked stronger already. Some color returned to his formerly ashen face. "Is everything all right at the academy?" "Everything's fine, Baba," she assured him, forcing a smile. "The doctors say your numbers are improving. That's all that matters." He caught her hand, his musician's fingers still strong despite the illness that had ravaged him. "You've never been able to lie to me, not since you were little." His eyes, so like her own, studied her face. "Who is he?" "Who?" "The man who has captured my daughter's thoughts." When she started to protest, he raised a hand. "These treatments, this hospital. We both know your savings couldn't possibly cover this." Prisha sank into the chair beside his bed. "It's not what you think. He's just someone who appreciates your music." He wanted to help. Without expecting anything in return? Her father's skeptical expression said everything. "We had an arrangement. 1 evening of my time for your medical care. It's done now." Dheeraj's eyes widened in alarm. Prisha quickly realized how her words could be interpreted. "No, nothing like that. We just talked, danced a little." She looked down at her hands. "He's different from what I expected." "This mysterious benefactor has a name, I presume?" She hesitated, then relented. "Vikram Singhania." Her father's sharp intake of breath told her he recognized the name. "The hotel magnate? Narayan Singhania's grandson?" Prisha nodded. "His grandfather was one of my earliest patrons," Dheeraj said thoughtfully. "A complicated man. Brilliant, but ruthless in business." He squeezed her hand. "Be careful, Prisha. Men like that live in a different world than ours. Their charity always comes with invisible strings." "It's over, Baba. One night that was our deal. He's kept his word, and I've kept mine." Yet even as she reassured her father, a part of her wondered why the end of their arrangement felt so unresolved, like a raga abandoned before its natural conclusion. Across the city, in the sleek glass tower of Singhania Hotel's headquarters, Vikram stared out at the Mumbai skyline, his mind far from the quarterly projections displayed on his tablet. "You haven't heard a word I've said, have you?" His sister Divya's sharp voice cut through his thoughts. At 29, she served as the company's chief operating officer, bringing a marketing genius that complemented his financial acumen. Something about the Singapore expansion, he offered vaguely. That was 10 minutes ago. She set down her tablet with a decisive click. What's going on with you? Ever since that charity gala, you've been distracted. I've been preoccupied with the Dubai negotiations. Lies. Divya leaned forward, her designer suit and perfect blowout contrasting with the intensity in her eyes. The same Singania intensity he saw in the mirror daily. Is it a woman? It is, isn't it? Finally. Vikram's silence confirmed her suspicion. Thank God, she exclaimed. I was beginning to think you'd never show interest in anyone after what Tanvi did. This isn't about Tanvi. The mention of his ex-fiancée, who had very publicly left him for a Bollywood director 3 years ago, still triggered a reflexive tightening in his jaw. Then who? Someone I know? Someone suitable, I hope. The word suitable hung in the air, loaded with the weight of family expectations. In their world, suitable meant the right family connections, the right business alignments, the right social standing. Prisha Sharma was none of those things. There's no one, he said finally. Now, about Singapore. Don't change the subject. I know that look. You've met someone who's gotten under your skin. She leaned back, studying him. Mother's hosting that gala for the Children's Hospital Foundation next week. Bring her. Let's see who's managed to crack the famous Vikram Singhania armor. Divya. Unless, of course, she's completely unsuitable. Her eyes narrowed. Is that it? Is she a model? An actress? Please tell me she's not married. She's a classical dancer, he found himself saying, immediately regretting the admission. And it doesn't matter. It was one evening of conversation, nothing more. A classical dancer, Divya repeated, her expression unreadable. Interesting choice. Not your usual type. I don't have a type. Exactly my point. You've barely dated since Tanvi. That's not healthy. Vikram turned back to the window. I've been focused on expanding the business into 3 new countries. Dating wasn't a priority. All work and no play makes Vikram an extremely wealthy but miserable recluse. Divya gathered her things to leave. At the door, she paused. You know, if this dancer matters to you, Mother might surprise you. She appreciates culture more than you give her credit for. After his sister left, Vikram opened his laptop and found himself typing Prisha Sharma dance performance into the search bar. The results showed several videos from years earlier. National competitions, cultural festivals, a TED Talk on preserving classical arts. He clicked on one from 4 years ago. Prisha, slightly younger but unmistakable, performing a complex Kathak piece. Her face transformed as she danced. Joy, devotion, longing, pain, all expressed through subtle gestures and pristine technique. Watching her, he felt again what had struck him that night at his villa. The raw authenticity of someone who had found their purpose and pursued it despite all obstacles. Who lived truthfully in a world that rewarded convenient lies. He closed the video abruptly and picked up his phone. And 1, 2, 3, turn. Hold that pose, Anjali. Beautiful. Prisha guided her advanced students through a complex sequence, losing herself in the familiar rhythm of instruction. The studio felt alive again, with classes now at full capacity. Somehow, word had spread about her academy, bringing new students from across the city. A mysterious scholarship fund had even appeared, allowing her to teach more underprivileged children. She suspected Vikram's hand in this as well, though she had no proof. The thought both warmed and troubled her. After class, she found a courier waiting outside the studio. He handed her a sealed envelope with her name handwritten on the front. Inside was an invitation to the annual Children's Hospital Foundation Gala, hosted by the Singhania family. A personal note in now familiar handwriting was paper-clipped to it. Your father's doctor will be honored for his pioneering work in oncology. Thought you might want to attend. No obligations. V. Prisha traced her fingers over the elegant script, her heart racing traitorously. The gesture was thoughtful, connecting her father's care to an event she might genuinely want to attend. Yet the timing, 3 weeks after their night together, suggested something left unfinished between them. She tucked the invitation into her bag, still undecided as she locked the studio and headed toward the hospital for her daily visit with her father. Mumbai's crowded streets hummed with life around her. Street vendors called out their wares, auto rickshaws wove through impossible gaps in traffic, and the scent of monsoon rain hung heavy in the air. This was her world, vibrant, challenging, authentic. Vikram's world of exclusive galas and seaside villas seemed to exist in a parallel universe. What could possibly bridge such different realities? At the hospital, she found her father sitting up in bed, playing his tabla for the first time in months. The small drum set had been delivered that morning, another unexpected gift with no card. It came with a note requesting that I record some new compositions when I'm stronger, Dhiraj explained, his fingers lovingly caressing the instrument. High-quality equipment. Someone who appreciates music sent this. Prisha bit her lip, emotion threatening to overwhelm her. How did Vikram know exactly what would heal not just her father's body, but his spirit? "I've been invited to a gala," she said, showing her father the invitation. "The doctor who designed your treatment protocol is being honored." Dhiraj studied the embossed Singhania Hotel's logo on the invitation. "Will he be there? Your benefactor?" "I don't know." "You should go," her father said, surprising her. "Wear your mother's blue silk, the one with the silver work." "Baba, I can't possibly—" "Yes, you can." His eyes held a wisdom born of years watching human nature through the lens of music. "Something unfinished exists between you and this man. I can hear it in your voice when you speak of him. We had a deal. He fulfilled his part. Not all transactions can be settled so neatly, Betty." He began a gentle rhythm on the tabla, his fingers remembering patterns his mind had stored through decades of practice. Sometimes life plays in a different time signature than we expect. The day of the gala, Prisha received another unexpected delivery, a package containing a stunning blue and silver lehenga that complemented her mother's jewelry perfectly. The attached note simply read, "An alternative. Confrontations and Confessions." The society pages called it the romance of the year. "Billionaire hotel heir and classical dancer, Mumbai's Beauty and the Beast tale," read one particularly florid headline. The paparazzi who once ignored Prisha now tracked her movements, waiting outside her dance academy for glimpses of the woman who had supposedly tamed Vikram Singhania. 2 months had passed since the gala. 2 months of careful steps into each other's worlds, quiet dinners at hidden restaurants, afternoons at her father's hospital bedside where Vikram and Dhiraj discussed music for hours, evenings at the academy where Vikram watched her teach from a corner seat, his presence both distracting and oddly comforting. They had yet to define what existed between them. Both seemed content to let it evolve naturally, away from the expectations of others. Vikram had not tried to change her life beyond the initial assistance he'd provided, and Prisha had made no demands on his time or resources, maintaining her independence fiercely. But the outside world was not so patient. "The board is asking questions," Divya informed her brother as they reviewed quarterly projections in his office. "About your intentions with Ms. Sharma." Vikram didn't look up from his tablet. "The board should concern itself with our Dubai expansion. Not my personal life. Your personal life affects stock prices when you're photographed taking a classical dancer to the governor's dinner." Divya's tone held no judgment, merely pragmatic observation. "They're concerned about your focus. My focus is exactly where it needs to be. The Dubai deal is ahead of schedule, and the Singapore properties are outperforming projections." "And the Tokyo investors?" Divya pressed. "The ones who expect you to meet with the Nakamura family about a potential merger, a family with an eligible daughter they're clearly hoping will become more than just a business connection?" Vikram finally looked up, his expression hardening. I've made no promises to the Nakamuras beyond business cooperation. But you've made promises to Prisha Sharma? The question hung in the air between them. Had he? They had spoken of exploring possibilities, of learning from each other, but neither had used words like commitment or future. My relationship with Prisha is private, he said finally. Nothing in our lives is truly private, Vikram. You know that? Divya's voice softened. I like her, actually. She has backbone, authenticity. But the world we operate in doesn't reward those qualities unless they're backed by power or money. She has both. Her power lies in her art, and she'll have money of her own once her academy expands. Is that your plan? To fund her career until she's suitable enough for the board's approval? The suggestion stung because it contained a grain of truth he'd been avoiding. Part of him had been working to elevate Prisha's status, introducing her to influential arts patrons, suggesting a documentary about her preservation work with underprivileged students. Not to change her, but to give her the recognition she deserved. But had he also been unconsciously trying to make her fit better into his world? I respect her too much to try to change her, he said firmly. It's not about changing her. Divya gathered her things to leave. It's about whether either of you is willing to change your lives enough to build something lasting together. At the door, she paused. Mother's hosting Diwali at the family estate next week. She expects you to bring Prisha. After his sister left, Vikram stared out at the Mumbai skyline, the same view that had witnessed countless business triumphs over the years. For the first time, those accomplishments seemed hollow compared to the moments he'd shared with Prisha, watching her face light up when her students mastered a difficult sequence, hearing her laugh at his dry observations about the absurdities of high society, feeling her hand in his as they walked along the beach near his villa. He picked up his phone and dialed her number. Can you meet me tonight? He asked when she answered. There's something I need to ask you. Prisha arrived home from the hospital to find her tiny apartment building surrounded by photographers. Since the news of her connection to Vikram had spread, the formerly quiet street had become a circus. Neighbors who once barely nodded in greeting now stopped her to ask probing questions or offer unsolicited advice. Is it true he's buying you a penthouse? Called out one paparazzo as she pushed through to her building entrance. When's the engagement? Shouted another. She ignored them, having learned that any response only fed the frenzy. Inside, she leaned against her door, momentarily overwhelmed. This was the part of Vikram's world she hadn't anticipated. The complete loss of privacy, the constant scrutiny, the reduction of her identity to Vikram Singhania's girlfriend, despite all her own accomplishments. Her father's condition had improved enough that he'd been discharged to recover at home. She found him in the small living room, watching a Kathak performance on television. More photographers? He asked, noting her expression. The usual circus? She kissed his forehead. How are you feeling today? Strong enough to be annoyed by your hovering. His eyes twinkled with returning vitality. I'm curious about why my daughter hasn't been honest with her father. Prisha sat beside him. What do you mean? This. He held up a newspaper featuring a photograph of her and Vikram at a gallery opening, their hands clasped, her laughing at something he'd said. The headline read, Singhania heir serious about dancer wedding bells soon. That's ridiculous, she protested. We're just getting to know each other. For 2 months? Diraj raised an eyebrow. With your picture in the papers weekly? That's more than getting to know each other, she sighed, unable to articulate what existed between her and Vikram. How could she explain something she herself didn't fully understand? He makes me feel seen, she said finally. Not as a charity case or a novelty, but as myself. He values what I do, who I am, and you care for him, her father observed gently. More than you're willing to admit. The truth of his words resonated in her chest. Yes, she cared for Vikram. His hidden gentleness, his unexpected vulnerability, his fierce intelligence. But caring wasn't enough to bridge their different worlds. It's complicated, Baba. Love usually is. He took her hand. But hiding from it doesn't make it simpler. Her phone chimed with a message from Vikram, asking to meet that evening. Something in his tone suggested a turning point had arrived in their carefully maintained equilibrium. "He wants to see me tonight," she told her father. "Then go." Diraj squeezed her hand. "But this time, be honest, with him and with yourself, about what you truly want." They met at Chowpatty Beach as the sun set over the Arabian Sea, transforming the water into liquid gold. It was one of the few places they could blend somewhat anonymously into the crowds of families and couples enjoying the evening air. Prisha found Vikram waiting near a bel puri vendor. Dressed in simple slacks and a linen shirt, his concession to blending in, though he still carried himself with an innate authority that drew glances. "You look tired," she observed as she approached. "Tokyo negotiations." He handed her a paper cone of the spicy snack. "Walk with me?" They strolled along the water's edge, a careful distance between them. Something in his demeanor suggested the weight of unspoken thoughts. "Divya mentioned the board's concerns about us," he said finally. "Ah." She kept her tone light. "Am I bad for business?" "On the contrary, our public visibility is at an all-time high. The humanizing of the Singhania brand has actually boosted share prices." His mouth twisted in a wry smile. "Apparently, the public finds me more relatable when I'm photographed watching dance recitals than when I'm closing multi-million-dollar deals. So what's the problem?" He stopped walking, turning to face the sunset. "They expect certainty, direction, a clear understanding of where this us is heading." The waves crashed against the shore, filling the silence between them. This was it, then, the moment when their undefined connection would be forced into conventional parameters. "And what did you tell them?" she asked carefully. "That my personal life is not board business." He looked at her then, his eyes intense in the golden light. "But they weren't wrong to ask the question, Prisha. We've been existing in this undefined space for months, neither fully committed nor merely casual. I've been happy in that space," she admitted, "getting to know you without pressure or expectations." "As have I. But—" He took a deep breath. "My mother has invited you to the family Diwali celebration. At our ancestral home outside the city, the significance wasn't lost on her. The Singhania Diwali gathering was legendary, an exclusive event attended only by family and their closest connections. An invitation meant Nandini Singhania was acknowledging her as someone significant in Vikram's life. "That's quite an honor," she said carefully. "It's more than that." Vikram took her hands in his. "It's my mother's way of asking the same question as the board, but for different reasons. She wants to know if you're going to be a permanent part of my life, of our family." The word permanent sent a flutter of both warmth and panic through Prisha's chest. These past months with Vikram had been unexpectedly fulfilling, opening her world in ways she'd never imagined. But permanence meant decisions, compromises, merging of lives that currently existed in separate spheres. "And what do you want, Vikram?" she asked, needing his answer before she could offer her own. His thumbs traced gentle circles on the backs of her hands. "I want you in my life." Dancing with Destiny. 1 year later, the grand opening of the Sharma Singhania Center for Cultural Arts occupied the front page of every Mumbai newspaper. Located in a restored heritage building in the heart of the city, the center represented the culmination of a vision that had begun with a desperate bargain between strangers. Inside the magnificent main hall with its soaring ceilings and state-of-the-art facilities, Prisha stood center stage, watching as her advanced students took their positions for the inaugural performance. Among them was Lata, the talented girl from the slum community center, now blossoming under professional training. In the front row of the audience sat her father, fully recovered and beaming with pride beside Nandini Singhania, whose foundation had provided substantial funding for the center. The past year had been a whirlwind of planning, negotiation, compromise, and creation. The cultural center was neither fully Prisha's vision nor fully Vikram's, but something greater than either could have achieved alone, a place where ancient traditions would be preserved, while evolving to remain relevant in a changing world. 5 minutes until curtain, the stage manager called. breaking Prisha's reverie. She nodded, giving last-minute adjustments to her students' costumes. "Remember, this performance isn't just about the steps," she reminded them. "It's about the emotion, the story. Feel it in your hearts first, and your bodies will follow." As the students dispersed to their starting positions, Prisha felt a familiar presence behind her. "Nervous?" Vikram asked quietly, looking distinguished in a traditional kurta modified with his characteristic modern touch. "Terrified," she admitted with a smile, "but the good kind of terror, the kind that reminds you something matters deeply." He took her hand, rubbing his thumb over the engagement ring she'd accepted 3 months earlier. The proposal had come not in some grand public gesture, but during a quiet evening at her father's apartment, with Dhiraj's blessing given beforehand. The ring itself was a perfect metaphor for their relationship, a traditional diamond flanked by 2 rubies, classic yet distinctive. "You've created something remarkable here," Vikram said, gesturing around them. "This is your vision made real." "Our vision," she corrected. "I couldn't have done this without you." "You would have found a way." His eyes held the admiration that still made her heart skip. "You were teaching dance in a leaking studio with peeling paint when I met you. Nothing stops you when you believe in something." "Maybe. But this reaches so many more children, preserves so many more traditions." She squeezed his hand. "Your business sense made my artistic vision sustainable. That's the partnership I never knew I needed." The house lights dimmed, their signal to part ways. Vikram would join his family in the audience, while Prisha managed the performance backstage. Before leaving, he kissed her briefly, still mindful of public displays despite their formal engagement. "Break a leg," he whispered, though perhaps that's not the appropriate wish for dancers. "I'll take it anyway," she laughed, gently pushing him toward the wings. "Go. Your mother is probably wondering where you've disappeared to." As he left, Prisha touched the Nataraja pendant that rarely left her throat, her talisman through the challenging year of building both the cultural center and their relationship. The journey had not been smooth. Mumbai society had buzzed with speculation about their unlikely romance, with many predicting its imminent demise. Business associates had questioned Vikram's focus. Arts purists had accused Prisha of selling out. Both had faced moments of doubt, wondering if the gap between their worlds was truly bridgeable. Yet for every obstacle, they had found a creative solution, usually by combining his pragmatism with her idealism. When the initial location for the center fell through, Vikram had suggested repurposing one of his company's historic buildings instead of building new. When funding stalled, Prisha had organized a benefit performance featuring her most talented students, touching the hearts and opening the wallets of Mumbai's elite. The center itself embodied this blended approach. Traditional dance and music would be taught alongside contemporary interpretations. Community outreach programs would ensure children from all backgrounds could participate. A digital archive would preserve historic performances and techniques for future generations. Sustainability and accessibility balanced with artistic excellence. The curtain rose on the inaugural performance, an original piece choreographed by Prisha that traced the evolution of Kathak from its temple origins through royal courts to modern interpretations. As her students brought the vision to life, she felt a profound sense of rightness settle in her chest. This was her purpose manifested. Not just teaching steps or preserving traditions, but creating a living bridge between past and future, between privilege and need, between art and commerce. From the wings, she could see Vikram in the audience, his expression a mixture of pride and wonder. Beside him sat her father, whose hands occasionally rose in subtle rhythm with the tabla accompaniment. On Vikram's other side, Nandini watched with uncharacteristic emotion, visible even at a distance. Two worlds that had once seemed irreconcilably separate now sat side by side, united by the language of art and the unexpected connection between two people who had started as strangers making a desperate bargain. The reception, following the performance, buzzed with Mumbai's elite, mingling with artists, students, and community representatives. Champagne flowed alongside masala chai, canapes beside samosas, another deliberate blending of worlds. Spectacular performance, the Minister of Culture enthused, clasping Prisha's hands. This center will be a jewel in Mumbai's cultural crown. Thank you, Minister, she replied, though the real credit belongs to the students and their dedication. As the minister moved on, Prisha found herself momentarily alone, watching the diverse crowd with satisfaction. Art critics conversed with business magnates. Dance students from privileged backgrounds chatted with scholarship recipients from Mumbai's poorest neighborhoods. Her father deep in conversation with a famous musician who had once been his contemporary. Worlds bridged, barriers lowered, not erased, perhaps, but made more permeable. Quite the triumph, observed a familiar voice. Prisha turned to find Tanvi Mehta, Vikram's ex-fiancée, stunning in a designer gown and statement jewelry. The actress had recently returned from a stint in Hollywood and remained a fixture in Mumbai's social scene. Thank you for coming, Prisha said neutrally. She had encountered Tanvi at several events over the past year, each meeting a carefully choreographed dance of civility, masking mutual wariness. I wouldn't miss it. Tanvi sipped her champagne. I must admit I didn't think you would last. You and Vikram, so you've mentioned, several times. And yet here you are, engaged and opening a cultural center together. Tanvi's perfect eyebrow arched. You've certainly secured your position cleverly. The insinuation stung, though Prisha had grown accustomed to such barbs from certain quarters of society who could not fathom that her relationship with Vikram was built on genuine connection rather than calculation. The center was never about securing a position, she replied evenly. It's about preserving cultural heritage and making it accessible to all children, regardless of background. Noble indeed. Tanvi's tone suggested she found it anything but. And the engagement ring? What heritage does that preserve? Before Prisha could respond, another voice joined their conversation. It preserves the heritage of my grandmother, who believed that true partnerships are built on shared purpose, not convenience. Vikram's hand settled at the small of Prisha's back, a warm, steadying presence. Hello, Tanvi. Enjoyed your latest film? Vikram. Tanvi's smile didn't reach her eyes. Always the diplomat? Not always. His voice remained pleasant, but his eyes held a warning. But tonight is about celebration, not old grievances. Of course. Tanvi lifted her glass in mock toast. To new partnerships. May they prove more enduring than previous ones. As she glided away to join a group of film industry executives, Prisha let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. I see she still harbors resentment, she observed. Tanvi resents anyone who finds happiness on terms other than hers. Vikram's thumb traced a soothing pattern against her back. Pay her no mind. Tonight belongs to you and your achievement. Our achievement, she corrected, leaning slightly into his touch, though I'm not sure everyone sees it that way. Does it matter how others see it? He asked. We know the truth. The truth. Such a simple phrase for something so complex. The truth was that their relationship had begun as a transaction, her company for her father's medical care. The truth was also that it had transformed into something neither could have, anticipated, a partnership that challenged and fulfilled them both beyond their separate ambitions. Sometimes I still wonder, she admitted quietly, if we're too different, if we're attempting the impossible. Vikram guided her toward a quieter corner of the reception, away from curious ears. What's brought this on? Tonight of all nights, when we've just proven what we can accomplish together. Something Tanvi said. About me securing my position. She met his gaze directly. There will always be people who see me as an opportunist who caught Mumbai's most eligible bachelor. Who believe I orchestrated everything from that first night. The end.